Throughout the 1960s, filmmaker Gerry Anderson produced several TV shows which used marionettes or puppets in place of real live actors. Anderson was something of a frustrated filmmaker because what he really wanted to do was make high quality films on essentially a TV budget, and of course this wasn't realistic, and so he used marionettes and puppets and groundbreaking animatronics to get the desired result. And the end product was very effective indeed, and incredibly successful. And ironically, for someone whose ultimate aim was to move away from the marionettes and break into real film with live action stars, the success of shows like Captain Scarlet and Stingray meant there was an expectation to create more similar successes. But in the fullness of time, we can see that these shows have had and endured an incredible lasting legacy. And actually, Gerry Anderson's contribution through these shows and the incredible work that he did with these marionettes and animatronics has probably left a more lasting and enduring legacy than if he'd made these shows without them. Now, despite the majority of these shows being very successful, I think there can be no doubt that the most successful, the biggest, the most iconic of all the shows has to be Thunderbirds. And interestingly, the original shows that were made in the 1960s had a second bite of the cherry in the early 1990s when they were repeated on British TVs, which now received renewed interest from the general public. Not only the children who grew up with it in the 1960s now appreciating it as an adult, but also a whole new generation of children who are seeing it for the first time, and I include myself in that group. And of course, as a result, there was a renewed toy license. Now, toy company Matchbox picked up the license and were ready to hit the ground running with a number of different toy lines to support the show. But most famous amongst them, I think, has to be Tracy Island. This playset was designed to go along with the individually released die-cast toys of each of the ships, and in fact led to panic buying before Christmas in 1992, which led to a shortage of these playsets in the UK, meaning it was the top wanted present that year for children, and it was also amongst one of the hardest ones to get hold of. It also led to what has become known as one of the iconic moments on British TV programme Blue Peter, in which they gave instructions on how to create your own Tracy Island from home, in order to help parents not disappoint their children on Christmas Day. I was one of the lucky children who actually managed to get the product for Christmas. I remember it being quite a magical experience, and I was very, very fortunate to get one as a child. So I thought it would be fun to revisit it all these years later and take another look at the Thunderbirds Tracy Island electronic playset. So, as ever, let's start by taking a look at the packaging. So this is quite a large box, which is exciting all in itself. But what I really love about it is that on the front, we have this wonderful painted, illustrated image of the playset, which is absolutely fantastic. So I think the colours are really vibrant, the illustration is really evocative and very, very playful. I think it's fantastic what they've done here. And as I said, it's very bright, it's colourful, and it's really, just really engaging and evocative really of the spirit of the show. So I think this is a really exciting image. And what makes it better is that on each of the corners of the box, we have each of the individual ships to really sell this. And again, they're beautifully painted in that sort of retro 60s style, which I think is really a really nice touch and really sells this packaging and makes it really displayable. All these years later, it's still exciting to look at. Meanwhile, on the reverse of the packaging, we actually have a photo image of the playset itself, and again we have little images highlighting some of the key features of this playset, which is quite exciting. And on the top of the box, we have some more of these feature photographs here, highlighting some of those key areas of play. And here it is out of the packaging, and it is all one solid piece. There aren't many pieces that you have to stick together. There's a couple little pieces that slide into place, such as the two top pieces where we can see the swimming pool and of course that circular arena at the top. They are separate pieces that just clip into place. They're not held together with any particular clips or pegs or anything like that. They just literally rest on top of it. Otherwise, it's all one separate piece. It is very nicely painted, so we can see that they've taken the effort to paint the hills between grey, blue, green of course, and of course there is the sandy elements as well, which gives us a nice overall visual flair. It makes it quite interesting to look at. It's not boring, it's quite textured, and it looks authentic. There's also a nice attention to detail and extra effort been made in the sculpting of this island, because we can see little pieces on the side of the island, like little stairways that have been carved into the rock, little doorways, little features like this that really aren't made explicitly obvious on the box or even in the TV show particularly, but they are here nevertheless, and I think it's little touches like this that really make all the difference. At the top of the island we have this separate piece which is the main homestead of the Thunderbirds, of the Tracy clan, and we can see the pool here, and again on the patio there's some nice colours, some nice attention to detail there to make this look a little bit more interesting, and even the pool has a nice ripple effect because there's different colours at play in this. We can see the gradient effect in those ripples between the darker blue and the lighter blue and the white, and this all adds to another layer of verisimilitude, a realistic look. Meanwhile, the other side of the island, we have some more textured colours on the top of this rock here, which looks really good. We can see the greens, the browns, the greys, and of course the sandy patches as well, which make this look really visually interesting. And the central tower that's coming out of the rock there looks really very cool. And there's some stickers to show those windows and the various lights and buttons and things like that that are shown up on that top layer, which looks really, really cool. And then at the other far side of the island, we have this other sort of circular room, office space where they do a lot of their planning, I suppose, and the rescue mission operation work, which is again very faithful to what we see in the show. There's not a lot of colour here, there's no colour on the patio or on the stairs or on those windows there, which is a shame, but this is very nicely moulded if nothing else. Now before I look at any of the actual features of the playset itself, I think I'm going to have to take a look at the ships first of all. Now, Matchbox, instead of providing the ships with the island, you had to buy these separately. So, you could either buy these individually if you, say, only liked Thunderbird 1 or Thunderbird 3, or you could pick them up in this special rescue pack set with all the ships in, and including, of course, Lady Penelope's Rolls Royce. Now, much like the packaging for Tracy Island, the artwork on this rescue pack is pretty glorious. It's very, very nicely painted. It's done in a faithful style to what we see from the sort of 60s art style, and the colours are vibrant and bright and colourful, and it looks really, really fun. Now, admittedly, these ships aren't to scale, and certainly aren't meant to be taken as such. Obviously, these are just illustrated images to really just sell this set and the features of each of these vehicles. And on the reverse of the packaging, we have those images again, but we also have that image there for the Tracy Island playset as well. And this pack has a really cool flip cover as well, so you can lift it up and we can see all those ships in their individual unique windows for each one, which is really cool and quite exciting. But what I really love is this top flap where we can see again illustrations of the key characters who pilot each of these ships or vehicles. And as you can see, we have virtually all of the Thunderbird vehicles, except for the notable exception of Thunderbird 5, which was a space station. All of these ships are made of die-cast metal. Lady Penelope's car is no exception, but it does have functional wheels so it can move around, as well as any other dinky car from this time. The mould, as you would hope, is pretty much perfect, and the paint apps are nicely applied in the main. Now, over time, mine's got a little bit chipped, a little bit of the paint worn away, but the pink is nice and vibrant, the silver and the greys are very nicely applied, and there is that sense of there being a sort of plastic, a chrome effect to the plastic fenders, which is quite cool. And I also like the little details of the FAB1 for the license plates. It's very nicely done. Meanwhile, Thunderbird 1 has that central die-cast body, but with plastic wings and plastic parts on the base of the vehicle, which is great stuff. So those wings pull out and they look really, really good, really authentic. It has a nice little action feature there, and the white painted lettering looks really solid. It's really nice to see the TB or Thunderbird 1 on there, and of course, the literal word of Thunderbird running across the base looks absolutely fantastic. Now, you may notice at the tip of the Thunderbird 1 we have this sort of rubber red piece. This I remember a friend who was quite prone to chewing this and actually chewed his off, and even mine seems to have had a couple of nibbles on it. Next up we have the largest and my personal favourite Thunderbird, which is Thunderbird 2, the big green turtle looking vehicle, and it's actually the one with the most features. There's quite a lot to this toy which I really like. So for the most part this is a die-cast vehicle. It has again the correct colouring, which is really nice. It has the correct labels, the T2, the Thunderbird 2 written on it, which are very nicely applied in those yellow stripes, but it also has these plastic legs too, so when you click these buttons here, the legs extend and Thunderbird 2 can land safely. Now, one of these legs often gets stuck, so it needs a little bit of prompting from me, but this used to work absolutely perfectly because these are spring-loaded and they're just held into place with a clip, and then when you press that release button, down they come. But that's not all, because there's another release button at the top that when you press this, out shoots the main body of Thunderbird 2, just like we see in the TV show. The main cargo hold drops out, and of course we see a number 4, because inside is Thunderbird 4, which of course is the yellow submarine, which looks absolutely fantastic. It is all one die-cut piece, and the colourings and lettering once again is very nicely applied. Now this is a very small vehicle. It is perfectly sized so that it can pop on the end of your finger, because there is a little hole underneath to allow you to do just that. And then finally we come to Thunderbird 3. Again, this is all one piece. It is mostly die-cast metal with that rubber tip at the end there, and some plastic pieces for the arms and the central sort of chassis of the vehicle. Again, this looks really, really nice. The colours are vibrant. The lettering or numbering where it's applied is really nicely painted, and it looks really good. Very authentic to what we see in the show, and the general shape, size and scale of it looks to be pretty much perfect with the rest of the vehicles in this line. So we can come back now to the playset itself. Now, there is no designated spot for Lady Penelope's Rolls Royce. I tend to have it on the runway where it's not being used by Thunderbird 2, or you can place it sort of on the side of the beach here, which still looks pretty cool and like it could work, so I'm quite happy with this. At the back of the playset there is this big alcove cut into it where we can store Thunderbird 2. But you'll also notice there are 4 buttons, and each one of these, when you press it, relates to a different sound effect for each of the Thunderbirds. And so, if we press button 1,
Thunderbird 1, FAB.
Yep, just like the TV show, turning the diving board stairs reveals Thunderbird 1 beneath the pool, and you can lift him out. This feature works exactly the same for Thunderbird 3. We press the button,
Thunderbird 3, blast off.
and you have to manually get in there, grab the rocket and pull it out. Now this is all pretty cool, but I feel like they missed a trick here, because I think they could have put in some sort of pulley or lever inside a level that when you press the button could have maybe lifted the rockets up, so you kind of had the sound effect but also had the rockets rising through a platform. I think it would have been a fun extra feature to see those ships rise by themselves. For Thunderbird 2, however, inside the hangar there is a lever that you can pull down which lifts the cave door. You can then give Thunderbird 2 a gentle push to roll him out onto the main runway. You may also notice that the palm trees also move to the side. Now, there should be 6, 2 of mine have snapped off unfortunately over many years of play, but there are a couple of grooves in which Thunderbird 2 will fit nicely into place. And there's then another lever to the side that when we pull it up, lifts the platform ready for takeoff. We can then press the second button and initiate launch.
Thunderbird 2, ready for launch.
There is one final button, but it doesn't relate to Thunderbird 4. Instead, it simply says,
Thunderbirds are go.
and speaking of Thunderbird 4, there is one final feature that Tracy Island has to offer. Towards the very back of the playset there is a little alcove cut into it where Thunderbird 4 can sail in or sail out from. So there's nothing actually in here, it is literally just a space. And it's a shame in a way that there isn't more of a cabin or a little pool for it to sit in perhaps. However, it is just a cut into the rock, which is pretty cool. At least it's something for Thunderbird 4 to do. And there you have it, there is my guide to the Thunderbirds Tracy Island electronic playset. As you can see, it's a relatively simple design, but very nicely executed. The main feature really all centres around Thunderbird 2, and I really like the cave and the way that lifts up the drawbridge. I think all this is really, really very cool. I do like the electronic sound effects for the other Thunderbirds, and I really like the pool and how it moves across to make space for Thunderbird 1 to fly out of. I think that's really very nicely executed. The paint apps are very, very nicely applied. And all in all, with all the ships together like this, I have to say all these years later, it's still a lot of fun. I certainly think there was opportunities here to make this even better and go one step further to make it even more exciting. As I mentioned, having some levers to just push the platform up for the Thunderbird 3, for example, would have been really fun. Or making more of a cabin at the back of the island for Thunderbird 4 to have something to interact with would have been really cool as well. But despite that, I still think this is a really fun playset, and it definitely brings back really fond memories for me, and this was a fantastic Christmas present, especially given the circumstances when this was very scarce and very difficult to get hold of. So I'm curious to know, did you manage to get one? Did you want one? And if you didn't, does it live up to expectations? As ever, please do let me know in the comments. Always fascinated to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.